Good morning. How you doing, Kelly?
Good. How are you?
Good. Everybody, this is Kelly Vincellete. Kelly and I have known each other for, I'd say 100 years, but you're not that, you're too young. You're way too young. So
87 years.
87. Well, yeah, that's actually the year I graduated high school.
I was close. I was 98. So
we just had our reunion. I got to catch up with a bunch of people. It was pretty fun. So Kelly, you work for Cornerstone Title.
Yes. Hold on, I'm turning my volume up so I can hear you a little bit better.
Oh yeah. So Kelly and I have been working together since she got into the business, and about a year after I got into the business, and she came to me, this fresh-faced little kid, saying, "Hey, I want your business." So I'm like, "Nope, I don't want to do business with you. I'm already cool with my people over there." And then she kept on hounding me.
Persistence is the key.
It is.
You were one of my first. I was going through a newspaper and looking at ads of people that had good ads and great content, and I was like, "Oh, this guy." So I just picked up the phone and called you right from that. I don't know if I ever told you that story.
I think I remember. That sounds rather familiar. Yeah, but it's 20 years ago. So Kelly, since we've known each other, you've been like my motivator, my inspirator, my spirit guide. And I always tell you this, that you're an amazing person, and I appreciate you dearly. So,
same.
Yeah.
I mean, your hair color changed after the twins, but
yeah. Never come back. Some people get like a little stripe down their hair, but no, I got the full Monty right there. Look at that.
There you go.
Yeah, baby. So Kelly, tell us what you do.
So, I am a title and escrow sales rep. So what that means, or I think my title is actually different, but I do the sales side of things. We work with real estate agents and lenders on building their businesses. Number one, on the marketing side, we've got a lot of tools that aid people in that. We also facilitate the transaction. So we're the neutral third party in a transaction to ensure all the needs are met by both the buyer and the seller in a transaction, and that we transfer ownership of the property 100%, removing all debts and encumbrances of the seller to move it to the buyer.
So simple terms, put it in veto speak, you help with the closing. Make sure
we are the neutral third party in a real estate transaction, and we have an office you do the signing paperwork in.
Right. And then you help agents, you connect agents with your escrow officer, who's Charlene Ramos.
Correct.
The best escrow officer in the world.
She is pretty fantastic. She and I have been working together over 10 years now. And one of the major reasons I'm still doing this and she and I are still together is that she is so incredible. This is a very stressful industry. This part of the transaction is very, a lot of pressure happens in title and escrow. And so that partnership, I'm really, really thankful for.
Yeah, you couldn't have a better partner. I tell you, she's amazing. She reached out to me yesterday and just said, "Hey, attaboy, you're doing wonderful with this transaction," and totally unexpected. And it just made me feel I love you guys. You guys are the best. So, yeah. So you see thousands of transactions where we see 2 or 3 transactions a month if we're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
If we're good agents, if we're new into the business, we're kind of new and we're lucky to get 2 or 3 transactions a year. I've been doing this long enough where I can count on business, but I get a little tiny drop in the lake, in the ocean of what is happening. And I think you have a much better view. And that's why I really wanted you on board, because not only are you experienced and awesome at what you do, but you also, I want to share with my audience your expertise, your knowledge of what's going on in this market, because for a while you were handling the entire Bay Area, right?
Yeah. Almost all in Northern California.
What? No, what?
That's a lot.
Holy cow. That's
I like
crazy.
sales a lot better and being intimately involved in the transactions and my
Right.
clients. And while leadership was fun, I'm super happy to be back in the weeds doing all this stuff that
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
doing
happy
here.
that you're back too.
Yeah, thanks.
But you're, and now I have a team of two. I have you and Suzanne to help me do everything with my team, and it's amazing. And what are you seeing in this market? Because you're seeing way more, what's going on. Tell us.
Yeah, so let me just share with you, since I've been doing it for so long, I saw back in 2008, and that market was very difficult. There were, people were losing their jobs, houses were short selling, we were seeing appraisals not coming in. And so the market was just absolutely, transactions were falling apart left and right. Today, the market definitely has paused for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not seeing transactions falling out. I am seeing that people are still, once they get into contract, are staying into contract. Right now, appraisals are still coming in right where they need to be coming in, so people aren't having to make up that gap from their offer to what the lender will approve on their loan. So while inventory is still a little down, while offers are coming in a little slower than they were, because a prelim generally takes 2 to 3 days to come in. There was a time where everything was firing around and we couldn't even get the prelims in by the time the property was into contract. So it's more of probably a normal market. The appreciation that we had in the last year of 25 to 30% is really not real life, and
Nope.
so we're just getting back to find where that even place is. And I think we'll see that consistency throughout the next year. I don't see the market making any major shifts. I think we're going to stay right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially here, right? I mean, you don't know what's happening in Vegas or St. Louis or Florida or wherever. You can tell because the Bay Area has a huge concentration of affluence. There's a lot of high paid labor that's here. We're not going to be as affected as, I want to say BF Egypt here, but smaller towns, smaller places, even like Modesto and Stockton, you're going to see
It's a
houses
different
come down.
market.
Absolutely. And that's what I've been telling people. And, we have struggled to see houses get into contract because the expectation was see this motivation, see the velocity of the market continuing to go up. And all of a sudden we kind of just plateaued at 30,000 feet. And everybody's like, where's my extra money that I'm expecting? Well, that's kind of gone away right now, especially if your house is missing one of the big three, right? Location, condition, and price. And if you're out of whack at all, it's going to take a little bit longer to sell. So we just got into contract on a listing, and we actually had to ask for a new prelim just now. I know you didn't see it, but because prelims are dated after 60 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think we're going to see, I think what we're going to see is the market kind of plateau for a little bit. And when I look at houses, when I look at numbers, so every Wednesday I report on what's going on with the market as far as inventory, as far as transactions falling through, how many pendings, how many closings, list price to sales price ratio, all within just San Jose, not the entire, Silicon Valley market. We're seeing, inventory go up. We're seeing very, very small transactions fall through. I don't think that's really anything to talk about. We're also seeing a whole bunch of other things, but you're seeing this on a larger market, right? You have homes that are over $3 million, where San Jose really doesn't affect that market.
Yeah. One of the little known facts in real estate is, so a lot of times when people are going to take a listing or talking with somebody thinking about selling, they'll get a net sheet done from us up front so people know their net out in the transaction. So when the market's going to make a shift, I usually see what's happening about 3 months before agents actually see it hit the market, if that makes sense. Again, we're the neutral
Absolutely.
third party, so we don't tell people we're doing these net sheets. So I can tell when the market's going to make a shift when I have a bunch of people calling me, asking me for multiple net sheets on 1, 2, 3 properties, or, a bunch of different people are calling me. Again, we're seeing a very steady flow of those net sheets coming in, which I think is fantastic. The other struggle that we have, and when you're getting into a transaction for your clients, is that the lender's documents are not necessarily getting to us in time. Being we sign, fund, and record, it should be a 3-day process. And we're getting the documents the last minute, and then we're pushing the transaction through really quickly. That's probably a whole nother conversation we could do, Vito, if you wanted to get into what people should expect when they get into escrow. But to your audience, what I would encourage them, when you are in a buy transaction, that you are constantly talking to your lender and telling them, hey, we need to close this day, so I need loan docs in on that day. We're that neutral third party, so we can make that call, but we don't have the muscle behind it like the consumer does.
Right. The consumer is still in control.
Consumer's got all the power. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And the consumer can pull out, and they can say, no, I want to slow it down, or I want to speed it up. And that's absolutely true in any situation, right? And that's not dependent on you. A lot of times you're waiting for the bank, and it depends on the bank. Like there's certain banks that we could talk about, which I don't like to disparage different banks, but certain out-of-state banks, they take their time. They don't care. They'll do whatever the hell they want because they have velocity, and they're more geared towards refinance versus closings, purchase money loans.
Well,
So
that's where it also makes a difference when you can pick up the phone and talk to your lender versus shopping the interest rate, which is important to all of us. We all want the lowest interest rate possible, but you have to accept, if you're going to shop and you're going to have a bot doing your loan, the customer service that comes along with that, and what you have to do as the consumer to be navigating that.
Right. You have to really know what you're doing if you're going to do it with a bot or a national company. You need to know what questions you're going to have to ask. It's kind of like going to a doctor and saying, hey, my arm hurts, I don't know what's wrong. Your doctor really needs to be able to say, this is how you navigate the entire process. And for me, I love Kaiser because they say, hey, you have a broken arm, go here, go here, go here. All the appointments are all set up for you, versus Blue Cross. You have to say, yeah, you have a broken arm, here, go, and you have to make an appointment for an x-ray. Like, what? Come on. I mean, it's
broken.
It's broken. I can tell you it's broken because it's doing this. And but hey, if there's anybody online right now and they want to ask a question about what goes on in title and escrow, we can absolutely divert. Just send a question our way, and I'm happy to ask Kelly that question for you. How do you think this is going to affect? I mean, we're going to see a pretty big slowdown in the coming year. Probably not here, but overall, the market will see a little bit of a slowdown, and we're seeing market slow down, right? We're seeing it where agents and lenders have to work a whole lot harder. They have to work probably 10 times harder to close a deal. How do you think that's going to affect all these agents and lenders that have entered the market?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for so long. I've just seen the ebb and flow. I was one of these people that came in. I went out on sales on my own in 2006. So just as the market was like, everybody had their clients and everybody was, if you could fog a mirror, you were doing deals. And then everybody was going, the market just crashed. Yeah. So what I think for the agents, the newer agents or lenders or getting it, it's really just persistence. We'll see shifts, the people with experience can navigate these waters a lot calmer than others. But, it's really about the determination and the dedication that you put into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I see the competition for me, loosening up, and, lenders, especially. I've seen people, a few lenders that I already know of have already walked away and gone into different parts of the banking industry. I think that's going to happen. And, here's the thing. You have a specific skill set that hardly anybody has, right? Because you do so much more than just present yourself and say, hey, work with me in escrow. You help us with title. You help us with understanding the escrow process. You help us educate our clients. You help us with marketing. You do so much more than everything else. And there's very few of you, and you are at the top of the pile. Obviously, in real estate, the barrier to entry is so low. You have to take three classes. That's it. 3 classes and pass a test by 60%, and that's it. And it's such a low barrier to entry that everybody's like, yeah, I can go in and do real estate. I think it's a great thing. I'm going to go do it because you can make a quick buck. And then they don't really understand the process of being professional, protecting the client. And sometimes you go months without collecting a check because that's just how it is in real estate and lending. So I think there's going to be people out there that are definitely going to be going back to a JOB.
Yeah, and that's where people have to be really careful of who they choose to work with, right? Vito's been doing this for a very long time. You have a lot of knowledge. You've got a lot of experience navigating the waters. You've got relationships with other agents in the marketplace that gives you, insight to when you're putting in an offer in for a buying situation. It gives you insight how to navigate a transaction when you're in contract and you're the seller. So, people, I think, the consumer needs to really think about those when choosing their agent. Now, I'm going to change the conversation a little bit, Vito.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking about some things that I get asked a lot when they're getting into contract or something's happened. So I thought I would share that with your network here and just give some food for thought. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Dude, you don't have to ask, just do it.
Okay.
Come on.
So the first one is if the property is in trust. So most people in the Bay Area, my real estate, attorney, he says if you have $300,000 worth of assets, your property should be in a trust. In the Bay Area, that's everybody unless you own one cherry tree. And so most properties here are held in a trust. Now, these are the things that I think is important for people to know. One, if both of your trustees are still alive on the trust, we don't need a copy of the trust. You just come in, we'll do a certificate that we document, we notarize that and record it down with the county. Everything's fine. If one of your trustees have passed away, we will need a full copy of the trust. And when I say full, I mean, we really need the part that's talking just about real estate, but a lot of times people don't know which part that is. So if you bring us the full copy, we'll take out what we need and send that down to our title department to get verification on who should be signing. We'll need an original death certificate. Most of the times when somebody has passed away, they haven't updated their title, which is fine. We just have to do that through the transaction. So we'll get an original copy of that death certificate. We do not return it to your client. We record that down at the county and the county sends it back. So remember, if somebody has passed, you want to have a number of copies of that death certificate on hand because you'll need it in a couple of different avenues, banking, a handful of other things. Right. So people get nervous because they'll only have one and then they'll say, oh, Kelly, I haven't gotten it back. And I would love to say that the county is really proficient on getting all of their information out as soon as possible, but they're not. Mm-hmm. The number one thing I think people really need to remember about a trust is that a trust never dissolves. So for me, let's say my parents passed away. I'm the trustee. Between my sister and I, we move all of the assets out of the trust. We put the property into our names as individuals. And now we're going to sell the property. If that was done by an attorney or just privately, like I could go online, create a deed, record it down at the county. The county records a document if it's got its 5 verification items, the return address, names on the deed. The deeds don't even have to be correct. And so then you put those on title, but the title company is still going to question that. And that's where a lot of people get frustrated, because they're like, well, it all was recorded and it was notarized. It's absolutely okay. Again, we are the neutral third party. We are ensuring the safety of the buyer and the seller. And so we need to verify that Katie and I, Katie's my sister, that we were actually supposed to get the property versus mom and dad. Maybe mom and dad had a caretaker that decided, that was taking care of them, and Katie and I were off living our best lives and not caring. And they really added something into their trust and gave it to the caretaker, and Katie and I took the property. I know that sounds far-fetched, but unfortunately I've seen stuff like that happen. Or people miss, it's been transferring and now the cousin is trying to sell the property, and there's splotches where that trust, the documents are missing. Mm-hmm. We need all of those to trace back to ensure the person selling the property is truly the right person to be selling the property. So if you have a trust that you have taken all of its assets out of, make sure you just keep a file copy of that if it does ever come up into question. And it has. A lot of people think that trusts are recorded down at the county, but they're not. Trust, that's private information. So again, if my parents decided to cut myself, or it would more likely be my sister than myself, because I'm the perfect daughter, but cut one of us out of the trust, they don't have to tell us that. We find that out when the attorney reads the trust to us and says, oh, and so sorry, Katie, you're out of here. Kel gets everything. So it's really important that people recognize that we need their help. And a lot of times a title company thinks differently than an attorney. So even though your attorney may be giving certain advice and their advice is correct, it's different than the view of the title and escrow company. And that's because we are a risk mitigation company. We are an insurance company at the end of the day. So we really need to look and verify that all our T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Right. And so a will is recorded, but a trust isn't, I believe. Is that correct? I'm not sure.
Neither are recorded.
Okay.
Neither are recorded. So, but a will does not take you out of probate. So you will always go into probate if you have a will and you don't have a trust. Right. And, you would have to ask your attorney. I'm not an attorney, but I feel like I give plenty of money to Uncle Sam. If your property goes to probate, you're going to give a little extra, like a lot extra. And so that's why I think it's important for people to have a trust, or at least look into getting a trust.
Right. Back in, I want to say 2010, I did a survey on all the homes in Santa Clara, which were recorded, and only 5% of the homes were recorded under a trust.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
I'd be
scary.
interested to see what that number is now.
Right. I know. I've done a lot of shows with lawyers, probate, family lawyers and all that, trying to promote this idea, because really that's the only way to help your heirs, the kids or the people that are underneath your trust, to prevent them from having to go through probate and worry about tax cost bases and all this other stuff that can protect you and your heirs. And once somebody passes, especially if it's like the last person within that trust, you have the loss going through, and you're in a massive cloud of sadness and emotion and turmoil, and I don't know what to do, and I have to go work or do funeral arrangement, all this stuff.
Right.
And the last thing you want to deal with is money and houses and property and everything. And that's why a trust is super important, because it really is just a written document to your children, to your family, to your heirs, to say, this is how I want everything to be dispersed. And it really does help. As a matter of fact, my trust has burial instructions for us.
Did you get the spelling of my last name correct in that?
Yes, of course I did. I had my lawyer triple check.
Oh, good. No, and I think you're right. You know, Vito, I'll tell you through the transactions that we have here, when they are family transactions, there's a lot of emotion in that. And that's one of the reasons I love working with Charlene, my team. I'm not the most emotional person out there. Charlene, my partner, she feels and can navigate through those tricky situations when people are getting emotional in a transaction. And while you think the family can work collaboratively to go through some of this stuff, the trust really helps navigate that much smoother to ensure people are not getting upset with each other and know where it's going. The other one, so I've got a couple more here for you. How are we on time?
I have all the time you need.
Oh,
I have a 1 o'clock appointment.
Oh, I have till 5 o'clock. My appointment canceled today, so I'll just keep going. Okay. Payoff information. So one of the things I learned when I first got into this business is that what is recorded on the preliminary title preliminary title report is not necessarily what is the active loan numbers or information for your property. Meaning, when you purchase your property, you might have a loan with ABC lender, and ABC lender sells it to XYZ lender, and the information changes, but nobody sends and records updated information. So us as the title company has to reach out to the consumer and say, hey, where are you making your payments? So we can order the payoffs and get that number. It is not updated monthly on your preliminary title report, your loan payoff. So those are all things that we have to navigate through the transaction and get the collaboration and cooperation of the sellers to get the correct information.
Right. That's super important. I know it's always like pulling teeth. It's like, Vito, one more thing. You want one more thing from me? Just take my blood, please. Because it's like you're asking for all these disclosures. And it's true, because I try to get everything done up front, right? I get the prelim, I do inspections, I do the disclosures. If there's a trust, I get an opportunity to come say hi to you. So I grab the trust and drive over and say hi to you and Suzanne and Charlene. And then you make a copy of it, and then I come back, and then there's always that last piece of information that they need. And it's obvious. I mean, it would be great to say, hey, my original loan was $500,000 and I have it down to 200,000 and the payoff's really 500. That doesn't work. It will all come back to you and bite you in the ass. So
that's totally, absolutely right. I always tell people, I trust you, but I can't close a deal on your word. I have to have it in written documentation. So a lot of times people will have a HELOC. You know, that's your second loan, and they don't use it. It's just there in case an emergency happens and they've got an extra $250,000 that they can pull out if they want to, right?
Right.
So even if you haven't taken the money out, you have to close it. Right. So when you tell me, oh, it's Kelly, that's at zero, don't worry about it.
No, it's a recorded deed on your thing on your title.
You have to close it. Vito, I've got a scary story about it. Really? So when I first got into this business, I worked with an escrow officer, and she was a fantastic escrow officer, but she missed something. So the HELOC came in, we closed off the first. The HELOC was a big one. It was $500,000. She didn't close that out. Either the people didn't give her I don't know how it happened. They moved. So they were, let's say they sold 123 Pine Street. Now they've moved to 123
Main Street,
Bubblegum Lane.
I like that.
Yeah. And they decided to remodel Bubblegum Lane. Guess where they borrowed the $500,000?
Really?
123 Pine Street.
Really?
123 Pine Street came back. They went to refinance. They looked at their prelim and they've got 123 Pine Street with the Vincellets on the loan
for $500,000.
Yeah. So it does happen. The reason why we need that information, the reason why we close those things out, the reason why you use a title and escrow company is because mistakes like that can happen, and people they knew they didn't own that other house anymore, and they're still borrowing money off of it.
Yeah.
$500,000 is a lot of money.
Very
That is
tempting.
a claim for a title company. So a title company works with the new owners of the property, because that was a mistake that they made,
Mhm.
navigates that, and then they will try to recoup the money from, well, I was saying it was me that borrowed against it. So they would try to recoup that money from me because I knew I didn't own that property anymore.
And what recourse does the title company have against that Vincellete that borrowed the
I'll
$500,000?
be honest, I walk away at that point.
Let the lawyers take over.
I let the lawyers take care of that. I don't want to be involved in any of that drama. I have enough intensity in my little world to not add that into it. But yeah, I knew that litigation was going on with them for probably about at least 2 years. They don't call and tell us how it gets settled or anything. They just audit our files. They pull the files. But, I've had people walk into my office with a fake ID to sign papers. I've had people, real bad stuff where we had to say, I'm sorry, this isn't you, and ask them to leave. So it really is, while I think the majority of us think nothing bad's going to happen in a transaction, it does.
Yeah.
Things go wrong, and not everybody is above board. And so it is really important to, number one, have a trusted agent that you're working with that is going to fight for you, keep your interests at top of mind and not their interests top of mind. And it's important to work with a title and escrow company that is trusted and respected. And I really saw that when the market crashed in 2008. There were title companies that went out of business,
Disappeared. Mm-hmm.
And there's some out there now that are not paper companies. And that's one of the things, and why I continue to work for Cornerstone, is our financial backing is so strong that even when the market makes shifts like this, I have no worries that my customers are going to be taken care of in the long run.
Yeah. It's funny that you would consider me a customer. I don't think of you as, you've always been like my go-to person for, I guess I am a customer, right? I've never been treated like
theoretically, a customer. Yes.
Theoretically. Technically, I guess I am
I was trying to be very professional on your cast here.
Yeah, well, I get it, but you've never treated me like, like that. We've always been like way past that. So that's really cool. That's nice.
Yeah. Well,
everybody that meets you, Kelly, loves you to a fault. And that's it. And the people that have problems with you, I know that one day we were talking and you had this one lady.
Not everybody loves me.
Yeah, but that's because you have ethics and you do the right thing. And if somebody's going to give you a hard time, it's because they know they're doing the wrong thing. And I remember one day you said this one lady fired you for, I guess, the better word. And I'm like, well, that's on her, because she's missing out, because, you have so much more to give. And that person is probably one of those rotten people that don't deserve to be in this business. So take it that way.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that you have to dig into. And again, because I started when the first real crash happened, I learned my craft. So a lot of salespeople aren't able to come on to a call like this and give you technical information through a transaction. But, both of us kind of got our start when the market was so tough. We had to learn different things to really make us stand out above our competition. And now, I'm a very successful person in my industry. I've done a lot of different things and I love it. But I do believe that comes from, just like you're saying, my vast knowledge beyond running a farm by meets and bounds and knowing when people transfer their property, and that I have strategic farming ideas and I strategically know. And that is something that's shifted with the market as well. Like, I'll tell you, agents used to rely on us so much more for their marketing, but now you guys are reaching out to people that their job is purely marketing and are doing different things for you guys. So I think that as the market continually moves and not even just the market changing, but really the industry changing. You and I are going to have to continually become more and more technical in a transaction because there's so much information out there for the consumers, and we have to be the ones to filter for them what is real and what is not real.
Right. And your service as well as ours has evolved over time. Yes, we put together a deal. We do the 3 Ps, put the house on the MLS, get a couple pictures, and put a post in the yard, and pray for an offer. There's so much more that we have to do today, right? We have that protection part. We do the disclosures. We do all the upfront stuff. We do repairs. We manage repairs. I have somebody on staff that helps me do that. There's maybe 3 other people in this industry that have a project manager on staff to be able to help go through the entire process of dealing with contractors and budget and timing and workmanship and making sure stuff gets done. And then we have, I use, for marketing, I use Video Ease, which is a company I own. They do post-production video for all my videos. So you have to offer so much more than what it used to be back in the 90s because we've evolved and technology's evolved and your technology has evolved too, right? I mean, I understand you're playing with the understanding of doing electronic signing now. Is that still kind of off in the future? Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of old school. So there's this thing that's called RON, and it's approved in almost 49 other states. California, we would call it a litigious state. And so it hasn't been fully approved here now, or yet, I should say. But that's that you can do notary like this. You and I could be talking. You show me your ID. I don't exactly know how.
Here's my ID like this. There you go.
Yeah. And then I would be able to notarize you remotely cross states. My uncle actually shared that with me a couple of years ago, and I was like, hocus pocus, because I want to be able to see people. I don't know if that makes me a little old school on it. I also, we do sign a lot of docs with DocuSign, our upfront package, our statement of information. So the statement of information is a document that goes through your history a little bit so we can identify you. So if your name, Sally Sue, is run, and there's a lot of liens attached to your name because a lot of people have that name, we have a statement of information that runs your last 4 digits of your social security, the places that you've lived, the boats you've owned, whatever it may be, to identify you and to remove those other loans off of you. So we're only paying off what you actually owe. So
tax liens.
Tax liens, child support liens, IRS. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we have to know.
All the nitty gritty crap. Yeah. And to make sure you're not a terrorist, right?
Yeah. That's something that we don't talk about.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much more going on today. I've been talking about money laundering and wire fraud a lot. I do weekly video live broadcasts like this every Wednesday, and a lot of stuff that's happening has happened for the longest time, and I don't think the FBI or whoever is in charge of it has a good handle on it. But there's money that's being laundered through straw buyers all throughout the United States. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had to say no to transactions for that. The straw buyer term for us is when people are turning properties really fast. So if you purchase a property, you make little to no repair on the property, then you sell it for $500,000 more within 3 months.
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible, but it's a high risk on us, right? Because you do.
Right.
So, we'll say no to some of those transactions. Wire fraud is something that's a really big thing for us at the title company. So we don't send wire instructions to the agents at all to send to the consumer. We send them directly to the consumer. They are password protected. We ask them to call our office to verify them. So if you're going to verify your wire instructions, you don't want to go off the phone number of the document that you've downloaded, because if a fraudster has gotten into that, they can change that phone number along with their wiring information. That's kind of, if you're a bad guy, that's the first thing that you do. So look it up online, use that phone number or the phone number that your agent has given you to call us. I have a scary story on that. Would you like me to share?
Yeah, it's 35402 something. It's like your phone number.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, that is our office line.
0205.
I had one of our offices, they were doing the seller, and the seller was purchasing another property, and we were going to, or maybe it was the opposite. The other title company we were sending the money to another title company for their purchase, wherever it may be. We're doing the sign off, and our branch looked at the wire instructions that the seller had given us and goes, "These don't look right to me." And the seller was adamant. "Those are the documents I got. That's the document I got. I verified it. I called the other title company," because time is scarce for all of us. So people move fast.
Right.
We still were skeptical. So the escrow officer walked out, gave it to one of the assistants and said, "Hey, look up this phone number, call it, and verify the wiring instructions." As we were doing that, we got a call in from somebody at the branch to verify the wiring instructions. How brazen is that? So we're on the phone with XYZ title company. They're saying, "No, these aren't our wire instructions," while somebody else was calling in to verify them.
Wow.
It is real, the wire fraud.
Yeah.
And so again, it's just another reason why you really need to work with a trusted professional, because we can identify some things sometimes. I've also heard stories of somebody emailed, it looked like an email to a buyer and said, "Hey, your final closing amount's changed. Look at this number and wire it. Here's the wiring instructions." This is right when wire fraud just started happening. They called the lender. The lender was, yeah. If the title company sent it to you, don't worry about it. That's correct. Just send it. So they sent their $800,000.
$800,000
to who knows where.
Yeah. Well,
they couldn't purchase the property. That was all of their money. And if you send the money,
it's gone.
It's gone. We can't necessarily pull it back. There is a wire that you can pull back, but we don't use those for transactions, right? Because we don't want you to send us the money and then pull it back in a transaction. We need to make sure the money is 100% ours. So like I said, it's just really, really important to take the time to verify all of that information.
I remember the last time we talked about this, you had a lady with the Santa Clara DA at a place, and we met there.
Oh yeah, we did a class.
That was so, I felt like I was in tunnel vision thinking, holy crap, this really happens. And it happens all the time. And we have so many disclosures that people pass that up. And I always go, every time I say, I go, stop, we have to talk about this. You're going to see this wire disclosure probably 50 times, but it's there to protect you. Understand that if you get this little crazy thing saying, hey, you have to send money somewhere somehow, give me a call, and then I'll put you in touch with Charlene, and then you guys figure out the numbers, because that could be a fraud. And I tell them, there was a story she mentioned about like $800,000. It was like $800,000, and it went to a straw buyer in Pennsylvania, and then the money got just zipped right over to like Iberia or like somewhere in Africa.
Anywhere.
Holy crap. I mean, stuff happens all the time. As a matter of fact, I heard like the Santa Clara County, there's a deputy sheriff that just caught somebody doing wire fraud. It was 400.
I have a friend that works in that, and he does all the real estate law for the county, and bad guys are out there. And the bad guys,
they're everywhere.
They might not be bad guys. It's kind of the stereotypical bad guy, or the story that they tell themselves when it's a family transaction and what they're doing. They don't think that they're they're the bad guy. They don't think they're doing the wrong thing. And so it's really important to have that neutral third party that you can talk it through with to support you and help you navigate how to handle different situations.
Yeah, so scary.
And that's, back to, I kind of lost track of what I was saying, but that's why when we go to the documents, doing total virtual signings, I struggle with that sometimes because I do believe at the end of the day, there are certain documents we should be signing. Maybe my opinion will change about that one day. I mean, I'm technically right there on the cusp of being a millennial. So you would think that I would be all on board for being completely paperless. But I do think the wet ink and being able to touch some of those things is important to your transaction. So when your notary is going through documents with you, your agent's going through documents with you, and they say, pay attention to this, it really is something to pay attention to.
Absolutely. It's essential, and you could be completely taken. And, I know that what's going to happen is they'll get angry and mad, and then they'll try to sue everybody, including you and me. And then, but that's why we have to do that kind of thing. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is this something somebody can do? Because, there's a lot of people out there like, oh, I'm just going to sell my house on my own. I screw the 6% and whatever. And, I'm like, go right ahead. There's so many different things that you have to put together on a transaction. It's not like writing an invoice and somebody paying a bill. And then there's so many different steps. It's designed to protect you. It's designed to protect both parties, right?
Yeah, well, and there's a reason why some of those companies back in 2006, 2008, why they went out of business. And there's, earlier I said, this is a very litigious state. Mm-hmm. That is why it's so important to have a qualified agent representing you, because if you do get into a situation where there is any litigious battle going on, you want to make sure you're protected. If you do a transaction by yourself and you're filling out the documents, you can do the best you can. And that happens when we get for sale by owner transactions. We'll navigate them. But we don't advise you on what disclosures you needed, with the TDS, with the seller's checklist, all those documents. We don't advise you what those look like. We don't know. Santa Cruz has some disclosures that they do that's a little bit different, as does Oakland, as does Berkeley, as does Contra Costa. There's nuances to every single different area. So it really is really important that you're working with an agent who is taking the time to be updated on all of those different pieces, so you are taken care of as the seller, to, again, ensure when you sell 123 Pine Street and you decide that's a part of your past, that it stays in your past and you don't get a call from anybody later.
Amen. Just be done with it, right?
Yep.
There's so many new things coming up. Sunnyvale's talking about putting in a transfer tax. Morgan Hill just started requiring sewer lateral inspections. Mm-hmm. There's so many different things that can just trip you up. And if you didn't know this and then you sell the house and all of a sudden this comes back to bite you, you're paying thousands of dollars in pain and suffering.
Attorney fees.
Yeah. And that's
that's a good point, Vito. If you are working with a title company insures your transaction. If there is litigious stuff that comes up after that has anything to do with what we've insured, we pay for those attorney fees.
Yep.
That is part of what we do to protect the consumers. Now, it's important to remember title insurance is protection for the buyer, not for the seller. So when we look at that preliminary title report, if Sammy seller looks at it and says, oh man, they missed a loan, or I had somebody one time who had a deferred tax agreement. They went down to the county. They signed a contract with the county. They paid their taxes on an alternative schedule. It got recorded against that wrong APN number. But the name was still there, so it didn't pull up on our title report. Sammy seller was like, get out of jail free card, and he didn't tell us about it. His payment came due. He got an invoice from the county. He waited 3 months to call us about it. He still owes that money. Those monies, that's not, if you don't tell us, a preliminary title report's just that. It's a preliminary report that the seller and us work together to make sure is 100% correct. If
Yep.
you don't pay it off appropriately, it is still the responsibility of the seller because that is money that they owed. Now, we make mistakes. We are humans. And so that's why it's important that we all work together. That's why I really check with the agents that I work with that they want to be a team with me and work for those transactions so we can ensure we're doing the best for the sellers and the buyers moving forward. And, you know, there are cases where we'll take losses to support people as best we can. But again, we have to do it in the right way and make sure that people's needs are being met in the right. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We just
Absolutely.
don't take losses like that.
I remember back in 2008, 2009, I went to the county court steps to watch the auctions because that was a big thing. It was a
Yeah, I
tax
did one
sale.
of those. I notarized one of them.
And I talked to a guy that was a broker, and he works with a bunch of investors, and they bought this property. I want to say, let's call it $600,000, right, in Almaden. And there was an unrecorded lien on it. And 3-4 weeks later, I don't think you can get insurance on that. Do you do insurance on those?
No, those are really high risk transactions. So,
Exactly. So what happened? Like 3-4 weeks later, there was an unrecorded lien on there, and they came back and said there was another $300,000 that was owed.
And that goes to the new buyer.
Yep.
That information gets when you buy stuff at the court steps. And when I was there, Vito, I don't know what you saw. I thought it was very interesting. People were there with like checks. You know, you just have to do cash.
You go
cash out.
200, 300, 400.
Yeah.
Here's 500. Can I get change?
But I didn't feel like people were getting huge steals. You know,
No.
I think people felt like they were getting big deals, and you probably do get a deal every once in a while. But I think for the most case, for my blood pressure, I think the better way is to go through a traditional transaction where you have a little bit more time where you can get real title insurance and have the real investigation. When that was happening, I would have people call me and say, "Hey, Kel, I'm at the courthouse. Can you pull up this property and look at the deeds?" So I would do it, and I could see most things that were recorded, but there's always a risk in there. There could be garbage liens. There could be, and you know, I'm going to assume the one you're talking about was probably like a mechanic's lien, meaning somebody had work done on the house and the contractor didn't get paid.
Yep.
They had the deed and then they went and recorded it, but it wasn't seen because, again, the county is not as efficient as they wish they could be.
Right.
And so it might have been recorded 3 weeks before it went to the courthouse steps for sale, but sometimes that takes 3 months to show up for us. So when we record something right away, and we have things like that, people go through divorces and they're changing the vesting and the deed gets recorded and they just mailed it down, but we've got no tracking on it. There should be a recording number on there where we can pull it up, but sometimes that's the only way we can pull it up if it's a quick turn. And that's, again, when you were talking about the straw buyers, that's why title companies don't do that, is because you could sell that property within 90 days, 3 months, and you might make the $500,000 on it. But that's such a short time frame for us to really ensure for the buyer that there's no other debts and encumbrances on that property.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff in place today on the lending side. They want to look at the prelim. FHA won't lend on anything unless it's matured for 6 months or something, or I'm not sure what it is, but there's a lot of different things that you have to know. And it's so many different things that can pop up. And, you know, I think part of the problem that we're seeing right now is everybody's like, what's going on with the market? Holy cow. And then the buyers are thinking that they can take advantage of the market, and sellers are like, no, my house is worth X plus 10, but really it's worth X minus 10, whatever that number is. And people are just saying, how do I navigate through this? What do I do? And all of a sudden I see a lot of people kind of like making different decisions. Like I want to go here, but what if I did this? What if I did that? So there's a lot of querying in the market, and just having somebody that's been in the market for a long time and understands that this is going to be a long thing. This is going to be like a 1.5 to 2 year process.
Yeah, I agree.
This thing, not like what we saw in 2018. That was kind of like a 3-month blip.
Yeah.
This whole thing that we're seeing, I think is going to happen really crazy. And there's going to be a lot of for sale by owners out there that are going to just try to dump their property, overvalue, and not tell you what's going on. Make sure if they're saying, oh, we'll just record it together, no problem, I can just take it to the county court steps. That's going to wind up biting you in the ass so hard. There's a lot of people that do some really crazy stuff. I sold a house for a guy in Hollister, and he moved to Texas, someplace in New Braunfels. And out there, the process is completely different, and the disclosure law there is completely different. This guy knew that the house that he was selling had foundation issues, massive foundation issues. And he hid it. He hid the cracks in the wall. He did all sorts of stuff to hide it. And he sold it to my clients who moved from Hollister, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. They did an inspection. The inspector didn't see anything wrong because it was all visual inspections, right? They're not going to go and test the foundation because there's no real way to do that. 6 months later, cracks start showing up, etc.
Oh, no, they just like covered it up a little bit with a little stucco and put some paint on it.
And it was right next to a river, so ebbs and flow, the ground swells and what have you, just like what happens in Willow Glen, right? Older houses.
I was going to say that's where I live. I was like,
right? And you get used to that. Yeah. But this was so damaged that experts came out, they looked at it. He wound up suing the guy, and the guy's like, well, the money's gone. I don't know what you're going to do. They had to tear down the house. Yeah, it was so bad. They condemned the house. They had to tear it down. So it's not just title or escrow or the agent. You have to have inspections. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have people that, like, I have a construction background. I know what to look out for, right? I can go around and look and see where problems are. I can tell you that there's going to be a little dip in a corner because there's water coming down from the downspout, all sorts of different things. I can't catch everything because technically I'm a layman, right? I'm not a licensed contractor. I'm a layman. So I always bring in inspectors to make sure we take care of that. And sellers, like, my sellers are not always, a lot of them are like, $1,500. Why is it so expensive to have inspections? Well, you have property, you have roof, you have foundation, you have a pool, you have all these other things that you want to disclose because $1,500 is much better than a $150,000 lawsuit.
Preach.
Right?
100%. We have that with title and escrow. Title and escrow is a one-time fee.
Right.
For the life of the ownership of the property. And people are like, well, that's expensive. I'm like, it varies based on the sales price of the property. But let's say on average, when I started in the business, they said title and escrow fees were 1% of the transaction. Today, I would tell you that they're less, but we're talking $2,000 on average for the life of owning the property to protect you, the buyer, from any debts and encumbrances from the seller of the past. And more than that, the easements, the CC&Rs, all of those, the use and enjoyment of the property, we disclose all of that to you. Mm-hmm. And so if there's something that doesn't go right when you want to build something or do something on that property, it feels good to rest assured to know you've got a title insurance policy standing behind you.
Yeah, it's the cost of doing business when you're doing it, right? I mean, it's like buying car insurance or your property insurance or whatever. It sucks that you have to pay it, but it's there.
But car insurance you have to pay all the time, right? It's a monthly. I have an accountant, aka husband, that takes care of all my bills like that. But I think it's a monthly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I had an investment property out in another state. I bought 6 duplexes, and 3 months to the day that I closed, one of them burnt down. You just never know.
Never know.
I freaked out. I was like, holy crap, Jill's going to kill me. Right? All of a sudden it's like, oh, I have insurance. Okay, that's okay. Is everybody okay?
I'd be
Right?
scared of Jill too. She's fierce, small but mighty.
Oh yeah, small but mighty. And then during that time, another one had sewer backup, which was horrible. I felt bad for that guy. And then another one got hit by a tornado.
Oh wow.
Just anything that could go wrong went wrong with that purchase. And that's why you have insurance. That's why you have all this other stuff. And I've never had a claim. And quick question.
Knock on wood.
You probably don't know the number, but how many transactions do you do, and how many claims actually pop up? Like, what's the claim ratio, I guess?
I don't know that number.
Yeah.
We get files pulled back. So we'll get emails that say, hey, don't talk about this file, or don't destroy any paperwork or emails on this file. So we have all of that saved, but I don't know. Again, I hand that part off to the attorneys. I do my part here in the office, and we make sure everything's transferred and we do everything properly. And then, it changes
Right.
hands at that point.
And that's like a controlled process, right? I mean, you guys have been doing it for, not you, 100 years, but escrow has been a process for 100 years to have checks and balances put in place, and mistakes happen. So you tweak it a little bit, and then you cover yourself, right?
Right.
I do the same thing when I go through a purchase or a listing. I always have this Gantt chart, for the most part, of this is where we are today, and these are all the little things that are happening all the way down the line. And every day or every week, we have a certain set of things that have to happen so that nothing falls through the cracks. We have a process in place. But better, we communicate that with my clients every day or every other day or every week, depending on how much they want to be talked to. And, there's this thing, and we actually have a dashboard for them. I know you guys kind of have something where we can kind of pick and pull, but like I have a spreadsheet that has the Gantt chart of timelines. I have 3 tabs that actually talk about the budget, the repair schedule, and another Gantt chart of the entire process of what we're taking on. And we have concierge, which gives you like $75,000, because Katie is at Compass too, right? I think so.
My sister?
Your sister.
Yes.
So we have Compass Concierge, which gives you up to $75,000 to do repairs or carpet or paint or staging or what have you. And then that gets sent to you to close off. And that's part of the checks and balances. And we also keep a balance of what we do. And you get a little credit card, actually, which is freaking awesome, because I can send it to my project manager, and she's like, hey, I need this lamp. I need this doorknob. I need whatever. Can I buy it? And the seller goes, yep, absolutely. And then we bring the receipt, and everything's, checked and balanced. And then we have like a really rough draft net sheet, which I know we're not supposed to use, but I use. And we have like a showing schedule and an offer sheet, all this stuff. So my sellers have access to everything that's going on at any given time of the day. And a lot of that is like questions come in, and then I go and pop in and ask you a question or ask Charlene a question. And you guys are so freaking responsive. It's not like, and that's the other thing too, is like when problems pop up, because nothing ever is perfect, right?
No.
You guys call me and say, hey, this is a problem. We have to take care of it. And we're like, okay, how do we get together and figure it out how to fix this problem? And you guys are just a huge part of the team. I can't say I appreciate you enough.
Well, we feel the same way. And it's like I said, when we work with agents and customers who are proactive and want to contribute to a solution versus complain about something that's popped up, it's much more productive. The transaction goes much smoother, and we get them resolved. And, we're not surgeons.
No.
Nobody's going to die on our table. There's no time. We can get through it. Most things are fixable. It just is a collaboration of people. And I think that's the most important piece to know about the title and escrow company, we are that safe place to make sure, everybody's needs are met. And there's no magic information. We have to be told again. So we are human. So an email might get missed with an invoice, and an agent catches that, hey, don't forget to pay this. We're looking at that and we say, hey, don't forget, there's an HOA on this. We need to make sure we get that information. Again, it's all of us working together to make sure no details missed on there for the buyers when they take ownership of that property.
I remember last year, or the year before, we were moving at such a fast pace. We had like 5 or 6 transactions going and everything was just going. All of a sudden, I want to say Suzanne ticked off and said, hey, this one has an HOA. Have you ordered it yet? I'm like, ah! So all of a sudden, and that is, it's just that we're here to catch each other, right? And that's what's awesome about it. It's like all of a sudden, because I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. But
yeah, we're all human.
Yeah, we're going to make mistakes and we're going to be adults about it. And we're going to figure it out. And that's huge. So, well, dude, it's been 106, an hour and 6
minutes.
It's been
100 hours since I've been talking to you, Kelly.
My voice is killing me.
Well, thanks for having me on, Vito. I love working with you. All of the customers out there, if you are thinking about buying or selling, Vito is a huge asset and advocate for you guys. So I just, I look forward to working with all of you guys and supporting Vito. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you bet. And if you're buying or selling something in Oakland, call Kelly's sister, Katie, because she's awesome.
Call Vito first, and then Vito can call Katie.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Kelly, thanks for your time today. It's always great seeing you. I'll see you next week.
Yes, I think so.
Absolutely. Have a good time up in Tahoe.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.